Well, I got so busy tearing the sheet metal out of this 67 Chevelle that I just realized I hadn't put together a update video since I got the floor put in. So I thought I would just shoot this real quick to show the progress, and we'll talk a little bit about removing the roof skin, which I'm in the process of doing right now. So this car, the passenger side quarter was already torn out. I did have the replacement quarter that was just screwed on, but it wasn't really doing anything, so it was pretty simple to get out. The driver's side quarter, the left-hand quarter, was still installed, so I've got that cut out now. There's probably a couple of different ways that you can do it, but what I did is I started here at the tail pan, and you can see that the tail pan's here laying on the floor. This is the old tail pan. One of the things that you'll want to be sure to do, either before you take these braces off of the tail pan or before you cut the tail pan out, is take a number of measurements so that you can get the distance between the braces. I even measured when it was in the car. I measured from the outer edge of the brace on this side to the edge of the trunk where it made it up to the trunk drops. You really can't put these in the wrong place. If you see here, they actually made up to the contour of the tail pan. And so if you match those up the best that you can, you're going to be pretty close. But again, I just take some measurements to make sure that I get those in the right place. And then you want to make sure that you get your center brace that contains the trunk latch in the right location too. The other thing to take note of is, depending on where you get your tail pan from, you may or may not have clips for your wire loom spot welded to the new tail pan. So just be aware of that before you trash this thing and throw it outside for the scrappers. You might need to take these and install them onto your new tail pan. So just be aware of that. From there, once the tail pan was out, I was basically able to pull the entire trunk out. It was pretty rusted here in these wheel houses. These inner wheel houses were pretty rusted, so there wasn't a lot of work there in terms of getting those spot welds busted, and was able to get that trunk pan out in one piece. It's sitting over here next to the 55, and as you can see there, it came out all in one piece, trunk pan and trunk drops. Then from there, I just moved on to removing the quarter. So this is pretty straightforward. Again, I just take my plasma cutter and I kind of make a rough cut, making sure not to cut into any bracing. In this case, I'm replacing the outer wheelhouse, so it didn't really matter. I was able to pull it away, so I didn't need to do a lot of cutting there. But if you're pulling a quarter off and you're going to be reusing your outer wheelhouses, make sure that when you come around the edge of that wheel well mold, that hole there for the wheel well, make sure you're not cutting all the way through into the outer wheelhouse if you're wanting to reuse that. That'll be a bad news for you. Something else to note here is there are these little brackets, these little brace. I don't even call it a brace. It's more of a bracket, more of a locating bracket for your quarter. Make sure that you don't cut that out either when you're removing that quarter. You can see I got pretty close there, but it's still going to be salvageable. And then just right here in the door, you can see where the lip here in this pinch weld is spot welded all up and along this this vertical area. There'll also be a few spot welds, although the ones on this car were actually pretty horrible. I probably could have pried them away by hand, but there will be a few spot welds here on the face of your striker mounting bolt or mounting location. And you can see here there were 3 spot welds across the top here, and then there were a few around in here. And then it'll also be spot welded. If you can see here, I've polished these down, or I've sanded these down so you can't really see them, but it'll also be spot welded along this edge of this quarter brace. So pretty straightforward. Just take your time. I've already got the rear trunk, or the trunk to rear filler, pulled out of here, also known as the Dutchman, if you're a Mopar person. I'm hoping that I can salvage this. I'm not real sure what I'm going to do. Somebody has done a hack job here, wanted to put in speakers into this package tray. Other than that, it's not in too bad a shape. There is some rust here. I think that that's going to either wire brush or sandblast pretty nicely, and then I'll come through and either use epoxy or zero rust, depending on how well it cleans up. So not sure what I'm going to do here. I'm going to try to avoid replacing the entire package tray. I can get a really nice one from AMD. They're about 300 bucks. And it's not that big of a deal if I have to do that, but again, I'm hoping that maybe I can track down somebody that's got this section right through here, and then I can simply either splice in or patch in some pieces there to make that look factory. At the end of the day, it's going to get covered with a package tray back here anyway, so no one will ever see it or be any of the wiser. And I don't anticipate anybody's going to lay on their back inside the trunk and look up into there. So that's what we're looking at right now. This side's obviously torn out as well. Very similar, same process as the other side. The one thing that I did want to just point out, I'm in the process of tearing this roof off, this roof skin, and I've already come through here with my cutoff wheel, and I've made a slice all the way down the edge of that pinch weld. I was going to use my plasma cutter, but I wasn't for sure certain if I'd have any problems back behind there. I guess I'll know after I get the skin off if the plasma cutter might have cut through another layer of sheet metal, but it was pretty simple just to go ahead and use the cutoff wheel. And so I've done that in the front, and I've done it in the rear here, or sorry, in the rear back there, and in the front up here. And as you can see, I've just basically made a slit, kind of like a surgeon, just an incision right along that pinch weld. The other thing that I did, just in case, is I couldn't remember if my new skin has the trim clip studs. And so I've gone by and I've just simply marked with arrows where each one of those studs are located. Either on the new skin, I'm going to, it either has them or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, I'll either use my stud gun to put new studs in, or you can use screws as well for your clips. So yeah, I just made quick point of reference. I'm sure if you Google, you can find the correct distancing and the number of studs that need to be in that pinch weld. So once you get both the front and the back, get that little slit made through there, it'll be fairly loose. But then the tricky part is when you get up here in this drip rail. So these things from the factory would have been spot welded right here in the drip rail. The roof skin itself has a lip on it that sits down in there. You may get lucky enough. Sometimes you can still see those spot welds after you dig out the drip rail seam drip check or seam seal or whatever it may be. In this case, somebody has painted this thing, this school bus yellow, and they've laid it on pretty heavy. And it was near impossible to really locate where any of the spot welds were. Now you can get in there like I started here just to get myself started. You can get in there and you can start grinding those down, just kind of guessing and hoping that you can get it pried up. The one thing that you want to be careful about, and I actually did this here, and I'll have to fix this, but you want to be careful that you don't get too aggressive and you actually cut through your hair. So you just want to be careful when you're doing that. But another trick is, like on the front and the rear sections, just get yourself a little slit started, and then as you're going, one direction, front to rear, rear to front, use a pry bar, get a little pry bar in there, and keep sliding it. See how you can slide that? And as you slide it, it's going to lift that sheet metal ever so slightly, and that will ensure that as you're zipping down through there with your cutoff wheel, that you're not cutting into any bracing underneath. It just is a good point of reference. You'll be able to tell as soon as you get through that roof skin, and then from that point, you just want to stop and just move and keep moving and moving and moving all the way down, either direction that you go here. And then once you get to that point, it'll be cut off, and as you can see here, it's ready to come off. You may find that you may have to just kind of cut across here a little bit to get it loose, and then once the skin's off, you'll have a little bit more room to come in here and do a little bit more work. So I I've got 3 of the 4 sides cut, and so I'm just going to finish up and get the driver's side skin cut away from the drip channel, and then we should be ready to pull this thing off.